So what I'm going to do is now, I'm going to take you over and we're going to show you how to mark out a pattern, which will enable us to actually establish our starting points on the wall without having to hold the boards in a dry run along the wall, because it can become really, really cumbersome to do. Okay? So that process is next. Okay guys, like I said, what I'm going to do now is walk you through the process for making our actual panel engaging rod. So basically what we have to do here is just cut a piece of timber to the exact dimension of the combined width of 5 boards, just like we've done here. And then all you do is you actually put the 5 boards together like so. So the contents from one packet essentially. Then what you do is just position the actual gauge rod flush to the edge, just like we've done here. And the next stage is just to pick up the actual joint lines on each board. So what we're essentially doing is marking the dimensions of the actual T&G onto the gauge rod. Then what we can do is we can literally just take the actual rod up and manipulate that on the wall to establish our starting positions, as opposed to trying to do it with 4 or 5 boards up on the wall, which is very, very cumbersome. So now that we've marked the actual joint locations onto the gauge rod, all we need to do is just square them down along the face of the actual gauge rod like so, and do that for each one. And then you'll notice guys, what I've done here is I've actually marked the centre of a couple of the actual boards on the gauge rod. In a moment this will facilitate the actual achievement of the symmetrical layout that I was actually alluding to earlier on in the segment. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to move back to our rig, and we're going to show you how to actually incorporate this gauge rod into the layout process in order to achieve that symmetrical professional layout. Okay guys, what I'm going to share with you now is the method for actually using the paneling gauge rod in order to achieve that symmetrical layout. There is one thing I would like you to know, however, is that we have removed the paneling level guide, okay, just to make you be able to see this process that much easier, okay. So it's very, very simple, and it goes like this guys, okay. When I actually incorporate the gauge rod in any layout techniques that I'm doing, what I normally do is I set it up in such a way that I start with a full board on the central layout line, okay? And then I look across and I see where my last whole board will end, and I then just make a call on whether or not I feel that the actual rip is going to be sufficiently wide, okay? And in this case it is. I can see it's going to be about half a board's width, okay, a little bit more, okay? In that case all I've got to do is just literally pick up the position of the last whole board on the level layout line here. But let's say, okay, that it wasn't like that and the actual rip was going to be much, much smaller. In essence, a sliver, okay? What I would do is I would literally just move the actual gauging rod back and then start at half the board's width and start with a board split centrally on this central layout line, okay? But obviously, in our scenario, once we start with a board on the line, we do end up with a really substantial grip here, okay? So I'll just mark the position of the last whole board on the wall here, and the reason I'm actually doing that is, okay, just so later on in the process when we do actually go to fit our last closing board here, you will see, because we laid it out in the way we have, we should end up very, very close to that layout line here, okay? So in order to get the position of our starter board on this side of the wall, because remember we're going to start here and work to our right, what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold the gauge rod in the exact same manner that I did previously. So in essence start with a board, full board on the line, and I'm again just going to pick up the position of the last whole board on the wall, and just make sure that that line is on our level reference line here. Okay. Now guys, now that we've actually established the starting point for our actual first starter board, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a measurement from the outside of the wall to that layout mark, okay, just to establish the overall width of our starter board. So just simply hook onto the edge of the wall and I report that measurement. As you can see here, it's 63 mil. Now what we're going to do in the next segment is going to walk through the process of how to actually lay out the starter board and actually cut it to size. Okay folks, so now what I'm going to do is talk you through the process how to rip our starter board to the exact width that we want. And remember, in our scenario it's 63 mil. But it's also very important to know here folks that when we're pulling that 63mm measurement, that we don't include the tongue. Therefore you hook the tape on from this square section here, the shoulder of the rebate. So from this point here it will be out 63mm, okay? So that's very simply done like so. I hook the tape measure on here just like this, and I mark out 63 mil, and I make one mark here. And then I just go down to the end of the actual board and I do the exact same process, and like I said, I'm making sure that I'm hooking the tape on right on the shoulder of the rebate here, and that will mean I don't include the actual tongue. And again, I mark out 63mm. Now in order to join those two lines up so that I can cut them in a straight line, all I do is register a straight edge against the two marks that I marked out previously, and I strike a line down the entire length of the board. Just like so. So just one more time guys, because it's very, very important. When you're actually pulling the 63mm measurement, try your best to always remember to actually hook on from the square edge of the shoulder here. Okay folks, so next the actual process of how we actually cut our starter boards to the correct width. Just a couple of things to point out here, just to make it as safe as possible, okay? What we've done is we've actually clamped the actual workpiece down to a workmate here, so it's the actual workpiece is really secure, and it's also at a really comfortable working height, okay? So the process is very simple. I'm only going to start off here and show you a couple of inches of the cutting process. We won't actually bore you with the entire process, okay? So very simply, all you've got to do then is cut along this actual line that we previously marked, okay? And the process goes like this. Again, it doesn't really matter if you don't stick to the line bang on, because like I said earlier in the segment, we're going to actually cover up any of these raw edges with a decorative angle cap. Okay folks, that's it in a nutshell. All you have to do then is proceed down the entire length of the board. So the next step in the process is now to actually start applying the actual panelling to the wall. So earlier on in the segment, we cut our starter board. Remember that was 63mm. So now what we need to do is, we need to actually attach this to the wall, okay? But it's very, very important guys, okay, that we make sure we start with the tongue facing towards the direction in which we're going to work. That facilitates slipping the groove over the tongue really easily, and believe me, it's a lot easier to actually slip the groove over the tongue as opposed to slipping the actual tongue into the groove, okay? But when we set this actual starter board up, okay, we want to make sure that we register this point here, right on the shoulder that we referred to previously when we were cutting the actual piece. So it's that shoulder there that we want to register with that plumb layout line, okay? So that's what I'm going to make sure I do here. And I'm going to make sure that I'm holding the piece up dead tight to the actual guide rail. And what you'll notice I just done there was I just transferred that plumb line up onto the guide rail so I could position it perfectly accurately. So what I've done is I make sure the actual plumb line registered with the actual shoulder of the rebate on the panelling, and I hold that like so. What I'm going to do here is I'm just going to attach this to the wall now. Prior to doing that, it was a real life scenario. What I would do is I would take the construction adhesive and I would apply it liberally to the back of the actual panelling. And then I would insert it on the wall. And when you do that, all you've got to do then is attach it to the wall with a couple of rads. Just like so. Now, what we can do here is just to make sure that we are installing this actually perfectly plumb. We just take a smaller level here and we'll just check that just to make sure that it is still perfectly plumb, because unfortunately I can't actually see the actual plumb line that we previously marked. So check that now. Make sure I have the right way around. That's spot on. So again, it on. Now with the adhesive on the back of this guys, you shouldn't really have to pin anywhere in the centre, but if you do it's not a problem, just pin it through there. Later on you're going to fill these anyway. Remember, this is a paint grade installation. Okay, so the next step in the process is to just go along and start actually fitting each of the boards. Again, remember, each time you apply a board to the wall, before you apply it you have to apply the adhesive liberally onto the back of the actual panelling. So it goes in like so. And you can just give it a slight tap of a hammer just to make sure that all the joints are nice and tight. And again, just going to tack it in place. Now, if you don't have a pin gun like the one we're using here, you can just attach this paneling with 15mm panel pins. Exact same process as what we're doing here, only for thankfully we have a gun that speeds up the process. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to just fast forward in the process so we don't bore you with the same process all the way, because it is very repetitive after this. And what we'll do is we'll cut back in a moment when we get to the point of actually fitting the last closing board. Okay? Okay guys, so as you can see we've progressed along nicely in the process now, okay? We're approaching that stage in the actual procedure now whereby we're going to start installing the actual closing board, marking it for the correct width we need to rip it to, so on and so forth. However, before we do that, okay, what I actually just want to point out here is something really important, okay? Because we took our time to actually lay the wall out and to actually achieve a symmetrical finish, okay, whereby we've got equal cuts on either side, I want to just draw your attention to one really, really interesting fact here, okay? If you notice, we've actually finished perfectly on our layout line here, and what we've done is we've actually broken the tongue off along a portion of the board here just to illustrate that. So if you can actually see this here, and I really hope you can, we've actually finished perfectly along that shoulder there, along a layout line, and that's exactly what we intended to do, okay? So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to proceed on now with the actual process and show you how to actually mark the width of your board, the width of your closing board, ready for cutting. I'm just going to install the actual last board here, second to last board I should say. Okay, now the process for actually getting the actual width of the closing board is very, very simple. All you simply do is offer it into place and then just pop around to the back of the board and just trace the profile of the outer edge of the wall onto the back of the board. It's that simple, guys. That's all you need to do. And then what we'll do is we can go and we can actually cut along this line in the exact same manner that we did previously with the starter board. So we'll do that process now, and when we return, what we'll actually do is show you then how to deal with the return around this actual nib wall here.